Thank you for taking the time to virtually join us today. Today, we'll hear from two guest speakers discussing how they creatively connect in a virtual world. Please note we will end promptly at 10:50 a.m. So first, let's go to the next slide, please. I'm Jaleesa Lynn, and I'll be moderating today's session along with my team.
Hi, everyone. This is Sergey Plotnitsky speaking. I will help Jaleesa to moderate this session today.
Thanks, Sergey. Next slide. Next slide. So our first guest speaker is Christian Thompson. She is the owner and lead designer of Reinvent Creative. Christian has built her skills and her brand studio from the ground up. As a self-taught, no-degree designer, she has built strategic visual brand identities for over 100 small businesses to include industries from beauty to mental health. She has elevated her brand by educating her clients on strategy and consistency so they may continue to propel forward to the forefront of their respective industries as authentic, one-of-a-kind brand identities. Christian will discuss how she's reinvented her creative journey in a virtual world. Without further ado, please welcome Christian Thompson.
Good morning, everyone. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. All right. Good morning. I am Christian Thompson. I'm so excited to be speaking to you guys this morning about resiliency and entrepreneurship. I feel like I can truly speak for everyone when I say this year has been rough, and the pandemic has especially shaken the business world to its core. So I think that resiliency and creatively connecting were the perfect themes for this conference. So I am the lead designer and owner of Reinvent Creative, which is a brand studio. And I specialize in building strategic visual brand identities for small businesses. I started off knowing nothing. I gave birth to my son in 2017, and I was a stay-at-home mom. I was bored, and I still wanted to generate income and also have something for myself. So I discovered Canva, which I feel like a lot of you may be familiar with. It is a free design platform used to create DIY designs. So I created logos and sold them to friends and family on Facebook for $20. So I came from knowing nothing, and what I enjoyed most about giving these logos to these clients was the confidence that they felt for their business by having the ability to showcase a brand identity to their audience. But I knew that if I was going to continue doing this and be able to really elevate my clients' brands and businesses, I was going to have to learn the professional programs. So I invested in courses and books and just my time and energy into getting to learn about strategic branding. I initially and briefly went to college and studied Spanish and international relations, so nothing to do with design. So as a self-educated designer, I am so familiar with the fear that often comes with entrepreneurship, and making major business mistakes and having a lack of identity are very common amongst new and even established entrepreneurs. But what I can tell you is that in making these major business mistakes, you may experience loss, but those loss will turn to lessons, and those lessons will allow you to develop a tried and true system that you can put in place for your clients and customers and for yourself. Unfortunately, the pandemic alone has brought on so much anxiety and fear and doubt, and many business owners have had to navigate through this new culture and climate by creating innovative ways to run their businesses. For me, and I think for most businesses, communication is key. And it's very important to maintain a relationship with your audience and customers and clients. So the pandemic created a barrier so that we couldn't really have personable communication. We had to change the way that we did that. So I decided to hire a systems operations specialist to put in place an automated workflow that included creative ways to communicate with my clients. The system that was used is Dubsado, and there are many systems like this. This one in particular is a customer relationship management system, and others are called project management systems. But these are great for both service and product-based businesses because you can use them to communicate with collaborators, with team members, and also with your clients. Within the overall workflow, there are canned emails that are sent out to my clients from the time that they book a call with me until their project is completed and launched. So these are some of the canned emails that are sent out, and they are personalized with smart fields so that my client feels like I'm the one sitting behind the computer emailing them directly, greeting them by name. And I know that because they respond to me as if they're speaking to me. So these canned emails do their job very well. So in addition to these personalized emails, I feel like it was very important for me, especially to create additional touch points because for me, I pride myself in my clients feeling like they are in the process with me the entire way. I don't want them to feel like I've booked them and I've gone off to a cave to just design all of their branding. I want them to very much feel like they're a part of the process. So this is an example of one of the canned emails, and it is the appointment confirmation email that is sent out once a client has booked a call with me. Within this email, there is a link to a video that I've pre-recorded using Loom. And in this video, I talk about what they are to expect within our call and give them an idea of what kinds of questions I'll be asking. Because if they're anything like me, I never get too excited about speaking with strangers, even if it's for something as exciting as branding my business. It's a little nerve-wracking to be speaking with strangers sometimes, especially if you're an introvert. So with this, they kind of know what to expect. And I also give them, can everyone still see my screen?
I don't think so. I think it was frozen on the first one, but
Okay. Let's see. How about now?
perfect. Thank you.
Okay, awesome, thank you. So this video allows them to be able to see me, hear me, and even get to know a little bit about myself and my business. And it builds that trust and rapport with the client. So this additional touch point, I feel like does an amazing job of creating a deeper connection with the client prior to us even working together. So as I mentioned before, the canned emails are a part of an overall workflow. So this workflow begins from the time the client books with me until they launch. And as you can see here on the left, I even have a past client workflow that sends out emails every 30, 60, and 90 days after. So my client feels very connected to me and they don't feel like I've left them hanging even well beyond the time that they've launched their branding. And it also creates a VIP experience for them and less administrative work for me, which is awesome for any brand or business because then you're able to focus on your core work. As I mentioned before, I've added many key touch points to my process, one of them being onboarding and offboarding packets. This is an example of my welcome packet, which details an overview of my services, answers frequently asked questions, and even provides some resources that they can use during and after they work with me. So with all that being said, as I shared with you, I came a long way from being a Canva designer selling $20 logos on Facebook. So I've been fortunate enough to work with over 100 clients that I've been seen in New York Fashion Week and RVA Mag. I have developed partnerships with attorney offices that specialize in copywriting and trademarking. So I've provided those services to some of my clients, such as Halfleet and JLT Foundation. And I'm currently engaging in talks with brands in Canada, Belgium, and Australia, allowing me to be an international-based company. But as I shared, and I will reiterate, I came from being a Canva logo with no degree in design and very little experience with any large marketing agencies. So naturally, I suffered from imposter syndrome and sometimes still do. But this is a psychological pattern in which one doubts their skills and their knowledge and feels like they don't deserve the recognition that they receive. And they have a persistent internalized fear of feeling fraudulent. So the term fake it till you make it, you feel like you're faking it all the time. And in a nutshell, it's comparing what you know and the skills that you possess to what you believe others know and the skills that they possess. But the reality is that you are just as capable. I am just as capable. Um, this syndrome affects more women than men, and you have a persistent fear of failure. I remember when I knew I wanted to make the transition to becoming a credible designer that was positioned as an expert in my field, I knew that it was going to take a lot of time and energy. And in thinking about that, I just thought no one's ever going to recognize me um, as a true and incredible brand designer and strategist. But what I do know is that when you're comparing yourself to these other people within your industry and in your business, what you know and the skills that you possess are still valued. What you know and the skills you possess are not going to be the same as everyone you're comparing yourself to, but it's just as valuable. So what you have to do is find your gap and your opportunities. And so to defeat this, I did something that every business owner should do, and that's a SWOT analysis, where instead of comparing yourself and worrying internally about how well they're doing or what they know or what you don't know in comparison to them, analyze their strengths and analyze their weaknesses and take that and in turn find opportunities and gaps to where you can connect directly with the people that will value the skills that you personally possess and the knowledge that you personally have. Because trust and believe me when I say it's valuable. Although I don't have experience in or a degree that says I know everything about marketing or advertising or brand design, I know that the skills that I have possessed from taking courses and reading books is valuable to the people that I serve. And I have found a way to market to those people. And that's how I've been able to become a brand strategist and designer as compared to the Canva designer that I was in 2017. So what I can say to conclude all of this is to never doubt yourself and that your first thought is your best thought and most confident thought. And the second thought only creates doubt.
That was amazing, Christian. Thank you so much. Wow, I am so inspired. That is the morning inspiration that I needed today. Thank you for that. It was such a great presentation. So next we will hear from our second speaker, Dr. Tara Coles. She is an emergency medicine physician at MedStar Georgetown University Hospital. Tara received her medical degree from George Washington University School of Medicine and has spent 13 years practicing emergency medicine in both academic and community medical centers in the Baltimore and DC metropolitan area. Tara will share how she's creating human interactions in a virtual world. Without further ado, please welcome Dr. Tara Coles.
Hi, thank you all so much for inviting me. I'm a graduate from George Washington University School of Medicine, so this is my I'm an alumni. I practiced emergency medicine for 13 years and then did a fellowship, a one-year fellowship in hospice and palliative medicine, which is the type of medicine that I now practice at Georgetown University Hospital. I just want to caveat that I'm speaking from my own personal experience as a physician, a palliative medicine physician, and not for my employer institution. That said, I want to, I think, start by just explaining what palliative medicine and palliative care is, because it is a newer specialty. And it is a specialty that encompasses multidisciplinary that work together: social workers, nurses, chaplaincy, volunteers, physicians, working in an interdisciplinary team to provide specialized medical care for people living with serious illnesses and their families. So this type of care is providing relief from symptoms and stress of serious illnesses, but not just physical symptoms, symptoms of psychosocial distress, emotional, psychological distress, existential distress, and for patients facing the end of their life, life closure issues and legacy, and supporting families and patients through really difficult times. So in a non-pandemic time, our work is focused on helping patients and families in the hospitalized setting to really figure out how we can help them live as well as they can, as long as they can. So it is a medical specialty that is the most humanistic, holistic type of medical care, where we are really focusing on the whole person, not just on their illness or a part of their body, but using all different types of people from different trainings and backgrounds to provide whole person care, recognizing that the person has a whole life story behind them and a family and friends who love them. And unless we support all of them together, then we are not letting them live their life to the fullest and supporting them through their critical illness. So how do we do this in a pandemic? So when COVID hit in March, we were challenged as a team because all of a sudden the unit of care that we were taking care of, the family and the patient, was different. So no family or visitors were allowed in our hospital. And all of a sudden we had many patients who previously had not been sick, now critically sick, mostly with COVID to start with, who were in isolation in rooms where they couldn't see any of our faces. They had no family around. And I practice a type of medical care that is completely focused on letting somebody see our faces, feel our presence, and having loved ones involved in decision making. So we were challenged to figure out very quickly how to take care of these very sick patients and their families in a crisis. So what we first learned were what were the barriers to some of the technological things we needed. These included things like privacy rules from the federal government about healthcare privacy, what kind of technology we needed, and how we could involve families and other healthcare providers from outside of the hospital in helping make decisions and supporting patients through crisis. So we figured out how to get access to Zoom HIPAA compliant, which is the privacy compliant Zoom accounts, and started very quickly providing support to families through Zoom in an interdisciplinary way. So my role quickly changed, and I think I had to have a very steep learning curve because my role became really a moderator and facilitator role. Because as you all are probably very familiar by now, speaking on Zoom is a craft and a learned art. And people speak over each other. People don't really know how to navigate, how to connect virtually like this. And so my job was really to learn how to facilitate these very emotionally charged meetings in very kind of high stakes, truly life and death situations in a way that made people feel as connected as possible and communicate in a way that flowed smoothly. So learning how to use technology to set an agenda, make sure introductions are made, make sure that people have time to speak, and that we're able to learn how to pick up on the nonverbal cues that we rely on so heavily in face-to-face meetings, how to do that in a virtual way. So learning how to become more of a facilitator and moderator using technology, I think, was a very critical skill. It also allowed our team members to kind of sit back and be a voice for the families and the patients in a way that they were not able to be their own voice because they couldn't be present. So learning how to summarize what other specialties were saying, learning how to advocate for kind of the hidden elephant in the room and asking questions, and at the end of the meeting, kind of summarizing what was going on. And then we also utilized virtual volunteers So we trained our volunteers to provide virtual support, and we call them televolunteers. And they were able to call and speak with families regularly and provide the kind of additional layer of support in a virtual way. In person, they would have been in the hospital, but we were able to actually train people as televolunteers, which I think was a very creative way of using our resources to patients and families. So now that we have fewer COVID patients and more of our other patients coming in with life-threatening and limiting illnesses such as cancer and heart failure and emphysema, we've continued to utilize technological solutions to connect specialties and patients and families and to really provide the kind of holistic care. Given the continued limitations on visitation and patients are continuing to feel isolated. So we sought out a grant, and this is actually another thing that I think is really an important learning and teaching point is finding out what your challenges are and then finding out what resources are available. So after COVID hit, all of a sudden grants became available for creative solutions to providing excellent medical care during this time. And so our job became how to find grant money in order to help fulfill our mission. So we were able to get a grant, and with that grant money, we purchased many laptops. And so we were able to really give our team and other healthcare providers the ability to take laptops with Zoom to the patient's bedside, and in that way involve other specialties and family members. In addition, we involved our arts and humanities program to use those tablets to provide support for patients such as mindfulness sessions via Zoom and on the tablet, knitting lessons, bedside concerts from our musicians with all different kinds of instruments, yoga sessions, expressive writing sessions. And this is all virtual using tablets with patients who are critically ill, who are able to really benefit from all of these other kinds of supports. It's not just treating a physical symptom, it's helping them, even in the hospital, live well. And so all of those things that, watching somebody do a knitting lesson on a tablet is actually a very powerful experience. The last thing we did was we started a project where we purchased a photo printer, and we had families send in via email pictures of their loved ones with narratives about what those pictures were and who our patient is and how we could best support them. And using those pictures and narratives, we created photo narrative booklets, which basically helped us to have something at the patient's bedside, which showed kind of who they are outside of the hospital and is by no means a replacement for a family member at the bedside. But I think it's a really beautiful way to try to connect somebody's humanity in a situation which is very abnormal and very isolating. And these photo booklets have turned into these really beautiful works of art. Kinds of care we're able to see and the patient can share. And it really gives us insight, I think, into somebody's humanity and has really let us support patients in a kind of holistic, integrative way. So those are some of the creative ways that I think we've used technology and also really risen to the occasion as a specialty in palliative care. And I think we've also been able to model for other people in the healthcare system how to quickly find resources and use technology in very creative, outside of the box kind of ways to support people's journeys through critical illness. So that is kind of where I continue to do this every day. I continue to take care of patients behind a mask, but these things have really, I think, humanized and created the ability to take care of patients in a very, very difficult time that continues in a way that makes them feel like whole human beings who we truly care about, and not just a patient in a bed.
Wow, that's so powerful, Tara. Thank you so much. I think it's amazing how you have just continued to humanize that experience, especially at such a tough time. Thank you so much for that great presentation. So now we will get into some Q&A. We have questions from the audience and questions that we've put together from our team. So let's get started. These will be for both of you, Tara and Christian. Feel free to answer. So what's one thing that you do to practice self-care daily?
For me, having a little one, if I do get to do this, it's not something I get to do daily, but a lot of the time I'll wake up before my son does and I'll go out on my patio and meditate, clear my mind, and then journal. And this kind of puts me in a space for creativity for the rest of the day.
That's great. How about you, Tara? Do you have any?
So I would say the first thing that in the professional setting, I have developed practices over the years. I do a lot of mindfulness before I see patients. I have mantras about kind of centering, so that really when I see patients, I'm very present with them, and it kind of calms the monkey mind of thinking about all of the different tasks that I have to do, because I benefit from just being totally present. So I find throughout the day, self-care is not just about at the end of the day, but throughout the day, how am I taking care of myself so I can really be present for my patients and show up in an authentic way, because people can feel when you're rushed and people can feel when you're not there. And I owe it to them and to myself to be with them wholly and not be distracted. At the same time, I get the privilege of teaching medical students and residents. And so that also is a kind of self-care. It kind of takes me out of myself, and it's something that I love doing and enjoy doing. And it's a way of ensuring that kind of the tenets of palliative care and humanistic care gets passed down through people who are training. And so I love that, and it brings me a lot of joy during the day. And then I would echo what Christian has said about I have 4 children, and when I come home, I also have some mindfulness practices where, in addition to decontaminating from the hospital, which is a ritual, I'm able to kind of let go of the day and again refocus my complete presence on my family, and then that really kind of fills my bucket and fills my cup. So it's, I think, a matter of finding what works for you and being able to kind of find out how you can let things go and then be fully present wherever you're at during the day. And that has really kind of helped me wake up fresh every morning and feel really just present in my life, whatever I'm doing.
That's great. That is such great advice. I'm writing all the notes because I need all this. So that's great. And so our next question, do you have like a routine that like keeps you productive during these virtual times, whether it's like professionally or personally? Like I know you do the self-care routines, but is there anything else that just gets you in the work mode or that keeps you focused?
Other than making my daily cup of coffee, one of the things I do is set core hours and set my work for the day. So I know that the first thing I'm going to do in the mornings is go ahead and check my emails and respond to emails, send them out, schedule them, anything that I need to do as far as that, and then take the middle of my day to focus on my core work, which is my creative development, whether it's web design for the day or logo design for the day, because I feel like working for 4 hours straight is, for me personally, the perfect amount of time. It's not too long to where I get tired or drowsy, and I can remain focused on that work and do my best work during that time. I don't think that long hours are productive, especially in a creative industry where overworking your brain definitely doesn't result in your best work.
It's so true. 4-hour work days for everyone.
Yes.
um, and so next question we'll go to Christian. You touched on imposter syndrome, and I know you talked about it, but are there anything specific, like in the moment, like how you deal with imposter syndrome?
Honestly, I have this other conscious, she's a whole nother personality, and she talks me down. She's like, girl, you know what you're doing. And I just kind of run through where I came from. That's the biggest motivator for me, because from $20 logos to 4-figure branding packages is a very long way for anyone to come in business to be able to to book people at that price point when you are self-educated. So it's just continuously giving myself those reminders to push me forward in knowing that I do deserve to be where I'm at in life and in business.
Yeah, for sure. Daily affirmations. And for you, Tara, like what innovations allow you to learn more about your patient? And same for you, Christian, or your prospective customer holistically, like to humanize the experience or sustain your small business. Like some examples can be like apps or different technologies that like help you do this.
So I think my specialty affords me the time to sit with patients and really ask them about who they are when they're well. For me, it's been finding kind of phrases and kind of communication techniques that allow quick rapport, because even though I have more time than some other specialties, figuring out how to get that quick rapport is really an art and a craft. And I think that probably is something that is across industries, not just in healthcare, but we all have limited time and people don't want to feel that you're rushed, and people want to share their stories with you. So, everybody really wants to be known, and figuring out what questions, words, phrases, and techniques work to kind of make somebody really trust you quickly. Everyone will have their individual styles of doing that, but it is something that can be learned, and it is a craft. And I think it is essential. Frankly, it's a business strategy, but it can be learned and it can be done quickly. And at the same time, it can be done in a way that makes people feel that you are not rushed. So finding that sweet spot, but it's really practice. It's kind of like acting or improvisation. It looks natural, but somebody has put in hours and hours of rehearsal time right behind that. And so all of the people that you see who make things look easy, I guarantee they have had 10,000 hours of practice behind that. And so take it to heart that all of these skills take practice, and do your due diligence so that when you show up for your customer or for your patient or for your family or whoever you're taking care of at the time, that you're doing it in a way that looks practiced and polished and authentic, and it's because you've done the work behind the scenes.
Yes, that is.
Yeah.
Yeah. You have anything? Yeah, Christian, you can go next.
I can 100% agree with that. Everything done behind the scenes is what allows for your clients, patients, or customers to experience that very real human connection that Dr. Cole spoke about. So for me, the system that I discussed during my presentation, Dubsado, luckily is a one-stop shop for everything I need to run my business in this way, so that my clients do feel that connection throughout the entire process of working with me. They don't feel at all like I've left them hanging, and they feel like they're my partner in design rather than they've just hired me to do the work for them.
That's great. Great responses. Let's see for our next question. So what does creativity mean to you? I think you guys are both in different industries and they can mean different things to you, but do you have like an explanation on creativity?
For me, creativity it comes in so many forms and can be applied to so many things. Like, for instance, what we're talking about, communication. In my industry, it's very much visual. However, in developing the creative communication piece, I think that it's the freedom where your heart and your mind are able to make a connection, because in developing those creative communication systems, you have to think about people and you have to think about how you would feel and apply that to your system. So it's very much where the heart and mind meet to really create genius work, and especially in communication.
And I think for me, it's been kind of looking outside of healthcare for ideas. So I think we can get very siloed in our industries, and kind of it becomes an echo chamber. And so, when you're faced with a problem and you're feeling stuck, it's, gather your resources and also look outside your silo and your industry, because I've been kind of inspired by other creative fields, from art and music fields, from acting, from other industries that that give you ideas about how you can innovate within your own silo. And so I think it's you just remembering that creativity is happening all around you, and to remember to kind of look up from your own desk and reach out to your colleagues. And you know, we all have friends and family that are in different industries, and people want to help each other. And so being brave enough to reach out for inspiration when you're feeling stuck, and remembering that there's kind of a whole world of people doing interesting things that can be applied to what you're doing, even if you know, it feels a little bit awkward to do so.
Yeah, that's great advice. Thank you. And what's one thing that for both of you that you wish you knew when you entered the industry that you know now, and that you would like kind of give that advice to someone maybe in your steps?
Set boundaries. Boundaries are very important in any business, because you're still a human being. You're still, for my case, I'm still a mother, I'm still a woman, I'm still an individual. And setting those boundaries also is important to create between you and your customers and clients, because it is a business and you don't want to get it taken advantage of, and you don't want to be overworked. So that is one thing I certainly wish I knew, because I used to answer emails at 3 a.m. and that's not acceptable at all.
Definitely.
I would say find mentors and sponsors and allies early. And then when you're in a place in your life and your career that you can be a mentor and a sponsor and an ally, put yourself out there to pay it forward. So it's, you know, finding your people and then being available. They're both such important parts of your professional journey. I would also echo the boundaries, that it's really, really important that you learn, you know, when to shut it off at the end of the day. And also, you know, as you go along and you're finding people, you're going to find people who are going to try to shut you down. And it's because of their own insecurities and their own kind of doubts about their own imposter syndrome. And so I remember when I was going to medical school, I started medical school late at 28. And I remember talking to some people about going back to medical school, and they said, well, you're going to be 31 when you graduate. That's really too old. And when are you going to have children? And when are you going to do this? And you can't do that. And, you know, at the end of the day, I was going to be 31 years old regardless. So why not to be? And I have 4 children, so it all worked out. So learning also what advice not to take and when to step away and recognize that somebody is maybe speaking from their own insecurities and imposter syndrome, and not to internalize that about your own journey and not let that disempower you.
Yes, Tara, all of that. That is just great. Thank you so much. And let's see, we have a few questions from the audience. So first, like Christian, for you, how do you market your services? Like your website, is it website, your Instagram? Like how do you find clients? Yeah.
I've been blessed enough to have worked with clients that they promote me. One of my retainer clients works in a space where she is a business coach. So she's constantly telling her clients, it's time to get branded, go to Christian, go to Ray Vision. And in addition, I market myself on Instagram, my personal and my business Instagram. I'm often on my Instagram story talking about branding, sharing value, you know, at a beginner level, just kind of inviting people to ask me questions. And then of course, I've built a site that answers all kinds of questions. If you go to my site, you're gonna know what my services are. You are gonna have a list of frequently asked questions. Everything that you need to know is there. And I just make myself very, very available to people. I'm not the type of person that's like, don't DM me, only emails. If you send me a message on Facebook or Instagram or whatever, I'm going to respond. So giving myself that freedom of being available to people has welcomed a lot of new clients over and over again.
That's great. And for both of you, how did like critical successes and failures impact your work?
So I would say that it's an art to learn, number one, not to take things personally. They're not about you. So it's such a hard thing to learn. But over time, recognizing that um, people put out a lot of energy, sometimes negative, sometimes anger, and 99% of the time, it's not about you. It's not personal. And when I really started to learn that and internalize that, it freed me up. It just freed me up from feeling like I had to solve everybody else's problems, or that or internalizing kind of everyone else's stresses. So I'm able to be present in that kind of energy and support whatever somebody else is going through without internalizing it, and without letting it letting it derail me. And I think that in every industry, you're going to have customers, clients, or family members. People are going through their own stuff. And the more that you can protect yourself from internalizing that, you protect your own executive functioning, and you don't get derailed by somebody else's agenda or somebody else's emotional journey. It's a hard thing to learn. But I don't mean to become not compassionate or to steal yourself off or to be cold, but learning that really 99% of the time, all of that energy is not about you. It's about, what somebody else is going through, being able to support your clients or your patients or your family through that, but not taking it on. And you will have so much more executive functioning and energy to do what you need to do and you want to do in your own life.
That's great.
Agreed. For me, I would say critical failures have impacted my work more than anything, because my work is very much a process. And during that process, there were times where I'm like, well, how could I have prevented this from happening? Waiting for instance, just waiting for content to get sent to me so I can actually begin on my work. Things like that, just missteps have impacted my business so much so that I made a huge, large investment in hiring that systems operations management specialist to go ahead and put something in place that benefited both me and my clients. So when I was talking about those major business mistakes that we all fear, I wouldn't say I welcome them, like bring it on, but I do know that those will make for great lessons that will ultimately help me to be able to organize my business in the way that best works for me and for my people.
That's great. Thank you so much. This was amazing. Thank you so much to the audience for attending and asking great questions. And thank you, Dr. Tara Coles and Christian Thompson, for just giving us your authenticity and just great advice. It's just so inspiring. This concludes our session for today. Please join us for the remainder of our conference by visiting gwoctober.com. Thank you.